Here's something that doesn't make sense. You're earning six figures, working harder than ever, and somehow you're still broke by the 25th of every month. Your health insurance bill for your family just hit $1,200 monthly. Your rent check takes half your take-home pay before you've bought a single grocery, and everyone keeps telling you the economy is recovering. Welcome to the new reality for American households. Somewhere between 1/4 and 2/3 of Americans, depending on how it's measured, now live paycheck to paycheck. That includes plenty of people making what used to be considered good money. What's happening isn't just about inflation or recession. It's about fundamental shifts in how much it costs to exist in America versus how much most people can actually earn. Why the numbers don't match the experience. Let's start with the disconnect that's driving everyone crazy. Government reports say inflation is moderating. Economists point to positive wage growth. Yet your grocery bill keeps climbing and you feel poorer than you did 3 years ago. Both things can be true simultaneously, and understanding why matters. Official inflation figures track overall price movements, but your family budget doesn't experience overall anything. You experience specific, unavoidable costs that hit much harder than the averages suggest. Between early 2020 and now, prices measured by the Consumer Price Index jumped about 23%. Your actual paycheck? It grew roughly 122% in nominal terms. Do the math and you're looking at purchasing power that's down somewhere between 0.7% and 2% overall. But here's what that dry statistic hides: timing. From April 2021 through April 2023, a brutal 25-month stretch, your paycheck got smaller every single month relative to what things cost. Prices sprinted ahead while wages jogged behind. You could literally feel yourself getting poorer month after month. Then something shifted. Starting in May 2023, paychecks finally started growing faster than prices. It's been over 2 years of that positive trend now. By mid-2025, about 57% of workers were seeing their pay outpace the cost of living. High earners, especially their wages, are up 4 to 6% annually, comfortably beating inflation. So why doesn't it feel like recovery? Because you spent 2 years losing ground, and 2 years of gains haven't erased that hole. Plus, here's the kicker. The people struggling most are seeing the smallest gains. If you're in the lower income brackets, your wages are growing maybe 1% annually. Good luck feeling recovered when your raises barely keep pace with rising costs. Think about milk. It went from $2.99 to $4.79 and just stayed there. That's permanent. Food costs overall, up roughly 25% since August 2020. When inflation cools, it means prices stop rising as fast. It doesn't mean they come back down. You're still paying way more than you were 5 years ago, and that never reverses. The housing trap. When math stops working. Let's talk about the single biggest destroyer of household budgets: housing. Since early 2020, home prices have rocketed up 4, 5, 55% depending on which data you trust. Some markets in the Sun Belt, try 60, 70% or higher. Your income didn't move like that. Nobody's did, except the top earners. But the price tag alone doesn't tell the full story. Mortgage rates used to sit around 3%. Now they're hovering around 6% to 6.5%, and they've been higher. That doesn't just make houses more expensive, it completely rewrites the affordability equation. Picture a $400,000 house. At 3%, you're looking at one monthly payment. At 6.5%, you're looking at something dramatically higher. Over 30 years, you could be paying tens of thousands more in interest for the exact same house. People with solid incomes, good credit, savings for down payments, they're being told, no, you can't afford this, because the financing costs destroyed the math. If you're renting, you're not escaping anything. A one-bedroom that cost $1,200 a few years back now runs $2,000, $2,500 in many cities. Let's say you're bringing home $3,200 a month after taxes, insurance, and retirement contributions. That's pretty typical for a lot of workers. Well, your rent just took 62% of your paycheck, before groceries, before utilities, before anything else. You cannot budget your way out of that. There's no side hustle, no coupon clipping, no financial advice that fixes math, where your mandatory shelter cost eats more than half your income. And where's the relief supposed to come from? New construction? Developers aren't building affordable starter homes? They're building luxury apartments and high-end properties because that's where the profit margins are. The entire entry-level housing market has basically evaporated in many areas. This is why just work harder or just budget better rings so hollow. The numbers don't work. Full stop. Millions of families are locked out of homeownership not because they made poor choices, but because the fundamentals broke. Healthcare, the expense that breaks what's left. If housing takes half your money, healthcare takes your financial stability and lights it on fire. Nothing else in the American economy combines rising costs, unpredictability, and absolute necessity quite like medical expenses. Family health insurance premiums exceeding $1,200 monthly? That's not unusual anymore. And that's just the entry fee. Add deductibles that run $6,000 to $12,000 per person, and you're talking about families facing $18,000 in premiums plus massive out-of-pocket costs before insurance truly covers anything meaningful. Run the numbers. $1,500 monthly in premiums equals $18,000 annually. High deductibles plus copays mean your total medical expense exposure can easily hit $40,000, $50,000 for a family that actually needs care. These numbers exist in a completely different universe from what most middle-class households can absorb. Prescriptions cost hundreds or thousands even with insurance. Doctor visits come with surprise bills. Insurers deny claims, add restrictions, and shift costs back onto you through every mechanism available. Here's what makes healthcare uniquely destructive. It hits when you're already stretched thin. Housing already claimed its share. Your paycheck, even if it's finally growing faster than inflation, spent 2 years falling behind. You've got nothing left in the tank. Then someone gets sick. You can do everything right. Maintain good insurance. Build an emergency fund. Avoid unnecessary medical care. One serious diagnosis or accident can still financially devastate you. That's not a bug in the system. For millions of families, that's just the system. The tale of two recoveries. Here's why economic statistics can be accurate and totally misleading at the same time. We're not in one recovery, we're in two. The technical term is a K-shaped recovery, where fortunes diverge sharply based on where you start. Overall nominal wage growth since 2020, about 22%. That sounds decent, but averages hide everything that matters. High income earners are crushing it. Their wages are growing 4 to 6% per year, well ahead of inflation. Their purchasing power is legitimately rising. They're not lying when they say things are getting better for them. They are. Low-income workers saw strong wage growth in 2021 to 2022, which was great, but that momentum died. Now their wages are growing about 1% annually. That barely keeps pace with inflation, if it even manages that. Among lower-income households, 29% are living paycheck to paycheck now, up from 27% in 2023. Things are getting worse, not better. Middle-income households, they're kind of treading water. Not gaining much ground, not losing much, just maintaining in an increasingly expensive world without building the security they used to be able to create. This wage gap between high and low earners is the widest it's been since 2016. Higher income millennials are seeing wages grow 5 to 6 percentage points faster than lower income millennials. Same generation, same age range, totally different economic realities. When politicians and economists talk about strong wage growth, they're not wrong. But if you're in the bottom half of earners, that growth is happening somewhere else, not in your bank account. The daily grind, the costs that never stop. Beyond the massive expenses of housing and healthcare, there's a constant drumbeat of mandatory costs that keep pressure on every single month. These aren't luxuries you can cut. They're the price of participating in work and family life. Childcare is brutal. Full-time care for one toddler can easily run $800, $1,000, $400 monthly depending on your state. That's often more than rent in cheaper areas. If you're a single parent bringing home $3,000 a month, childcare alone can destroy your budget before you've paid for anything else. Dual-income households often find childcare eating what one parent earns, essentially creating a second mortgage payment. Energy bills keep climbing even when you cut usage. Utility companies raise rates to cover industrial demands, data centers, corporate expansion, and pass those costs to residential customers. What used to cost $150, $180 for gas and electric combined now runs $250, $350 or more in many places. You're using less, paying more. Cars are another constant drain. Average payments now run $700, $1,000 monthly. Insurance rates jump 20–40% in multiple states. Add fuel and maintenance, and you're looking at hundreds monthly minimum, even for an older vehicle. But without a car, you can't work. So you pay, even though it's crushing your budget. Stack these up: childcare, utilities, transportation, and they don't leave any room to breathe. No emergency fund, no savings, no flexibility, just a constant calculation of what you can and cannot afford, knowing that next month brings the same impossible math. When safety nets can't hold the weight, eventually, families stretch this thin turn to programs designed to prevent collapse. That's when they discover another failure: safety nets built for an economy that doesn't exist anymore. SNAP eligibility requirements were written decades ago with assumptions about housing costs, healthcare costs, and income that are wildly outdated. A household earning $3,000, $3,200 monthly, barely surviving on that in 2025, gets told they make too much to qualify. Never mind that they're overdrafting accounts and using credit cards for groceries. There's a broader economic impact here too. SNAP dollars flow directly into grocery stores and local businesses. When millions lose benefits or see reductions, that purchasing power vanishes from the economy. Stores raise prices to maintain margins. Food costs rise for everyone, not because of scarcity, but because the system removes spending power. This connects to everything else. Wages for many people aren't keeping up. Housing is crushing budgets. Healthcare is financially devastating. And the programs meant to catch people when they fall can't handle the weight of an economy where basic survival costs have exploded beyond what those programs were designed to address. The mental cost of financial survival mode. At some point, the economic pressure transforms into something else entirely: permanent psychological strain. When you're constantly worried that one unexpected bill could trigger a downward spiral you can't stop, your brain never leaves survival mode. Millions of Americans now live with daily financial anxiety. They delay having kids because they can't promise stability. They avoid seeing doctors because of cost fears. They work multiple jobs, night shifts, weekends not chasing success but running from disaster. More than 60% of Americans report living paycheck to paycheck in some surveys. That includes many earning over $100,000. Credit card debt just hit $1.23 trillion, an all-time high. These aren't just numbers. They're evidence of a population in chronic financial stress. This has national implications beyond individual suffering. The U.S. economy was built on middle-class consumption. When that group can barely afford essentials, they stop spending on anything else. Local businesses close, regional economies slow. The engine that drives growth starts sputtering. The federal government is carrying $38 trillion in debt and climbing. A financially exhausted middle class means declining tax revenue. As households cut spending, government borrowing must increase to keep things moving, accelerating the debt problem. It's a cycle that feeds on itself. Understanding the squeeze. What's happening to America's middle class isn't a sudden collapse. It's sustained pressure from multiple directions at once. Housing costs surged 55%, while incomes grew 22%. Healthcare expenses spiraled upward. Wages fell behind inflation for 2 solid years, and even though they've been beating it since mid-2023, that recovery is reaching high earners far more than those struggling most. This isn't about personal failure. It's not about bad budgeting or poor choices. It's about structural changes that made essential costs rise faster than most people's ability to earn. The gap between what officials report and what households experience creates frustration because the data suggests recovery while the bills demand more. The middle class isn't being eliminated overnight, but it's being redefined, stratified, and for millions of families, pushed to the edge in ways that demand honest acknowledgement. Some people are genuinely doing better. Their wages are rising, their purchasing power is growing. Others are treading water or falling further behind, watching the gap widen. Understanding what's really happening means seeing both sides, where recovery is real and where it isn't, who's benefiting and who's still struggling, what the numbers actually show versus what the averages hide. Only then can we have honest conversations about what comes next.